Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Hank's Corner. I'm Hank Jr., and I'm here with a very special guest, Jerod Yount. Jarrett, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful tonight. So, where are you calling from?
I'm calling in from Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Currently, that's where I live. I'm from Perryville, Missouri, so southeast Missouri.
Okay, so you've lived in Missouri all your life?
Yes, I have. Yep, since I was born and raised.
All right. And so I know you're a musician, but are you a full-time musician, a part-time musician? What's your status?
So I work I work full time at a factory. Um, I work part time on a farm with my family, and I do music part time. I'm kind of a busy guy. I've got like three full time gigs going. So music's kind of a part time thing right now, but hopefully someday it'll become a full time
So you're kinda like what Brooks and Dunn talked about, a hardworking man. That's you right there,
thing.
right?
I try to be. It's what my dad and my parents, and my grandparents always taught me to be. So I try my best.
That's awesome. So you said that you do some work on a farm. Tell me about this farm. Is it, the traditional farm? Is it a dairy farm? What kind of farm is it?
So we farm. We've got cattle, cow calf operation, and we farm about 1,800 acres, I think, give or take, of we get corn, beans, wheat. We do everything a little bit, and been working on there since it's my grandpa's farm, and my dad's starting to take it over, and we sell a little bit of Pioneer seed on the side, and I've just started. Been working there since I was about 11. It's kind of been my whole life's been spent working on there, and kind of ties into the music. One of my favorite songs I've ever written is kind of a love letter to my grandpa about growing up on the farm and everything he's taught me uh,
Uh,
from from working.
okay, and I was gonna get into that, so you brought that up. Tell me about the special relationship that you do have with your grandfather.
Yeah, so my grandpa's my best friend. I grew up with spending every summer. I basically spent dang near every day with him, working on the farm. I remember being little, and he paid me $10 a day to go out there, and whether I did something or I didn't do anything, I got $10 that day. So, I'd work the whole summer, and I'd make $600 or $700, and just get to hang out with my grandpa every day. And we he taught me everything I know about working hard, and everything. So many life lessons he's also taught me. If I need somebody to talk to, I can call my grandpa at any time of any day. And I like to think he can always call me if he needs to air some stuff out off of his chest. And we're just super, super tight.
And you said that that kinda led to a song that you wrote about him. Tell me about that song.
It was actually the first song I ever wrote by myself. Like when I started playing guitar, it was the first song I ever wrote. It's called Granddaddy's Farm. It's on my EP. And it's basically just a love letter to my grandfather. It kind of talks about, the chorus says, a lot of things, and it's like, hold on to faith and never lose your heart, which is something he used to tell me all the time, and he still tells me. And everything in that song, every word that I sing in there is true. There's a line in there that says he'd leave me a sandwich laying under the steering wheel. When I was out, I'd take a truck out to a field, and I'd be working in the field all day, and I'd come back, and in the truck that I had, there'd be a sandwich laying under the steering wheel if I didn't bring lunch that day. He'd come, and it's just this turned into this thing that I wanted to write, and I kind of was trying to figure out how I was going to start writing. And basically, I just told my life story about some of the best times of my life with my favorite person in the world.
And he does sound like a great guy, and, I never had a grandfather myself. I did have a dad that was, a great influence to me, and I had that with my dad. But I think there's something special in a different way that comes from grandfathers that you don't get from the fathers, correct?
Yeah, I think my dad and I have a great relationship, and my stepfather and I have a great relationship. But there's just something different about, I think, the relationship, like you said, between a grandson and a grandfather. I think there's a little bit of a difference in that relationship. You're more friends. Your parents are strict, and not that my grandfather wasn't strict, but I was like his little buddy. and from day one. So you kind of have a little bit different relationship. He doesn't have to do all the parenting things that the dad has to do all the time, and he can focus on being. It's like they always say, your grandma. She takes you and she babies you and she hops you up with candy and then she sends you back to the parents at the end of the day. So you don't have they don't have to necessarily do all the parenting, and it's just a special relationship for sure.
Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and play Granddaddy's Farm here on Hank Jr.'s Quarter?
Long days of working, plowing granddaddy's field. He'd leave me a sandwich laying under the steering wheel. He could talk for hours about what needed done. When the sun came up, it always felt like we were under the gun. Corn needed spraying, the cows, they needed hay. Fence needed fixing, and we always needed rain. But come Sunday morning, he's right there in his pew, with his head bowed down and chest out proud, a farmer through and through. He'd say, hold on to faith and never lose your heart. Always learn your lesson and always do your part. Go find a woman who loves you for who you are. Reap what you sow and know what you know. Lessons down on Granddaddy's farm. Now that I'm older, I still think about those days. Waking up real early to beat the evening rain. And all the time I'd spend riding tractors with him. The best days of my life were right by his side. When he'd talk, I'd listen, he'd say, hold on to faith and never lose your heart. Always learn your lesson and always do your part. Go find a woman who loves you for who you are. Reap what you sow and know what you know. Lessons down on Granddaddy's farm. He'd say, hold on to faith, never lose your heart. Always learn your lesson, always do your part. Go find a woman who loves you for who you are. Reap what you sow and know what you know. Lessons down on Granddaddy's farm.
All right. Well, that's Jerod Yount singing Granddaddy's Farm. I'm Hank Jr., and we're listening to Hank's Corner. So you mentioned that was the first song that you wrote. Do you enjoy writing your songs yourself? Is it something that comes easy to you? Is it hard? And what's the process that you go through in writing songs?
That's a really good question, because I get asked that a lot. I get asked it a lot from younger kids that are starting to kind of um, they're getting their start in writing, and the first answer is I love writing is my favorite part of doing music. I mean, I love being on stage. Don't get me wrong. I love all of that. I love being on stage. It's a rush. It's where I feel like I'm meant to be. But really getting to pour my emotions and my feelings and my experiences into something unique and something that's mine is my absolute favorite thing. It's one thing to be on stage and hear people singing back to you a Morgan Wallen song or a Hank Jr. song or a Luke Combs song, right? Or even a song that may be an original that somebody else wrote. It's one thing to hear that, but it's a whole other thing to sit there and to see.
Okay, I have a little technical difficulties here.
I don't know what happened there.
No problem. You were talking about, seeing that emotion.
Yeah. So it's a whole other thing to see the emotions and the smiles and everything that people are going through when they're hearing something that you wrote and they're singing it back to you. Because I write all of my music, based on experiences that I went through, whether it was hardships, whether it was good times in my life, whether it's like Granddaddy's Farm, where it's a love letter to my grandfather, or Unbreakable, where I wrote it about losing a really close friend. Um, it's a wide range of emotions, and I always tell people, I'm like, I really don't know what I'm doing when it comes to songwriting. I kind of just throw words at a piece of paper and hope that it goes well. I let my heart lead me in where I write. And I feel like that's the start of a good song, is to always let your heart kind of lead you to the right place. And so that's kind of the advice I give, people when they ask me stuff like that.
So it sounds like you put the words together first, the lyrics. It comes from, your personal experience and emotions, and then you follow up with the music.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like I'll write a song and I'll actually kind of compose it in my head how I want it to go. Like I'll say a lyric gets stuck in my head, like a line, just a simple line, and I'll kind of let my heart take me. I'll build that into a chorus or into a verse, and while I'm doing that, I'll make up the melody in my head. And then typically while I'm doing that, I can hear the guitars in my head, I can hear the drums, I can hear the bass line, I can hear the keys, and I can kind of build an entire song in my head. And then it's basically about just writing it out and then putting the chords on the guitar to where I want to, and going to my band and saying, I want this, this, and this. Like, what are you guys feeling? What are you guys hearing with this? And then we kind of build the song together. It's a pretty cool thing.
When did you start thinking or realize that you wanted to get into music and playing the instruments and writing? Was that when you were little?
I always so my grandpa, he always used to joke that I was gonna be from the time that I was a little bitty, like I'm 3 or 4 years old, he always had a joke going that I was gonna be a singing preacher. That's what
Mm.
he thought I was gonna grow up to be. He said I just ran around singing and I loved church and I loved all that stuff when I was young, and I guess I've always loved music. I didn't really sing. I was in choir in middle school, and then I switched over to band. And I played band in high school, and I played band in college. I played the trumpet, and I started. Really didn't know that I could sing at that time. Like I knew that I was okay, but I didn't know that that there was any difference between me and the person sitting next to me on a bus. And one day I was at a party, and I was singing along to the radio, and somebody goes, "Man, you're good." And I'm like, whatever. Like we're all here to party. Like it is what it is. And he goes, "No, dude, like you're really good. Like I play guitar. We should sit down and hang out sometime and play some cover songs that we know." And then that was my first band that I was in. Started from that, and we were in a cover band and played Blink 182 songs and just covered this wide array of music. And I did that from the time that I was 20 until probably I was 21, 22. I was in that band for 2 years, and then I took a break from music and I started learning how to play guitar. Uh, I got an app on my phone and learned how to play chords, and then from then that's when the writing really, like the writing aspect, started happening, and doing all that. I have a friend in high school who we used to always mess around, and he built beats and was a producer, and we would always kind of hang out and do stuff. So I knew I was interested in it. I just didn't know that it was a path that I was going to go down until I was about 20 years old, probably.
Okay. Who were some of your early influences, musical influences?
Oh, that's a good question. As far as overall music goes, like, oh, that's crazy. I love Elton John. I absolutely love Elton John. I like, oh man, Brooks and Dunn is one of my favorite groups. I love the way that I like the whole '90s atmosphere. Alan Jackson, Garth Brooks, George Strait. The '90s country is where it's at for me. That's what I think is the prime time of country. And I always kind of really got into country because on the tractor, that was the only radio station we ever got. I could get the local country station, so I listened to it all the time. And I love every kind of music. I love rock, I love rap, I love old school music, you know. So, but Elton John's my favorite all time for sure. And then it's kind of, you know, like I said, Brooks and Dunn and those guys. And I started respecting their songwriting. And that's one of my favorite things about Garth Brooks is his songwriting, and it just blows my mind. And that's where I really started. The older I got, to listen to music from a songwriter's perspective, and I was really interested to not necessarily hear the music behind everything, but I wanted to listen to the words, and I wanted to listen to the story that was being told, or the experience. And so the older I get, and the more that I mature, and the more that I develop as a musician and an artist myself. I lean more towards the kind of the Tyler Childers, Zach Bryan, you know, stuff like that, where they're more singer songwriters than they are full fledged just superstars.
Yeah, and you mentioned Garth Brooks. So, I mean, obviously Garth Brooks is, a great entertainer. He was, one of the great entertainers in the 90s of that whole era, but he was a great storyteller, and he could capture, whether it's actually just speaking to his audience, he would capture you, but also in his music. And that's awesome that you would say that that's, somebody that influenced you, other than just the fact that he's so entertaining.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You can always throw the debate up on who's the best country artist of all time, but he's not in your conversation, then I don't know what you're doing. Because he kind of changed the game. He really did. He A lot of people are like, he made pop country a thing. Well, I mean, country music is always evolving. And, you know, he's one of the greatest songwriters in country music history. He's one of the greatest entertainers in country music history. If I'm not wrong, I think he's the biggest selling country musician of all time. So it's kind of hard to not just be amazed at what that guy's done.
When you talk about all these different genres and different influences within country music, do you find that your music um, is influenced in different ways by them? Can that be heard in your music?
Yeah, I think that you can hear. I like to think that my music kind of can touch anybody, from any genre, and from any, any time frame of liking country music. Like, you can listen to Where the Night Leads, and if you want to have a nice little, like, quote unquote pop country song, Where the Night Leads is kind of more of what you hear on the radio today, and it's a good fun cruise down the road and listen to it. If you like more of the rocking country, All American Girl is a rocking song, and it's you have different things for different people. Unbreakable is just a stripped down acoustic sad song. That's what it is. And I think that there are some other songs like Long Gone and The Whiskey and Granddaddy's Farm where my songwriting kind of takes the lead, and they're their own style, and then you kind of mix it all together, and it kind of makes me. It's every genre that I grew up listening to, every singer, every songwriter, and it kind of molded me into where I don't really fit. I don't think that I fit in a certain subgenre of country music. I think that, there's a little bit out there for everybody.
And that's great because you do want to be influenced by the different genres or the different parts of the genre, which is good. But at the same time, you want to be yourself. You want to be Jerod Yount, and this is Jerod Yount's music, correct?
100%.
Okay. And so you mentioned Unbreakable was one of the songs. Would you mind singing that for us here on Hank's Corner?
Oh, absolutely. Uh, One thing before I play the song, I always try to say this. This song is a dedication. I wrote this. I was going through a really tough time. I just lost one of my close friends. He lost a battle to some personal things going on, and this is kind of a love letter to him. And I was lucky enough to go through a breakup at the same time, so I could write it through a breakup lens. To anybody out there that's going through anything in your life, it will get better. Uh, there's always there's a rainbow at the end of every storm, and reach out, ask for help, talk to people, because nothing that you're fighting is worth losing a battle. When this song is about a friend that took his own life, and one of the best quotes I've ever heard is, when you take your own life, you don't only remove the chance of things getting worse, you remove the opportunity for things to get better. So reach out for help and ask, talk to people. So anyway, this is Unbreakable. Try to find the words to say since you went and walked away. You weren't made for breaking hearts, but you went and broke mine anyway. Sometimes things don't work out the way they should. Sometimes things that seem unbreakable breaking too. Remember the first days, I remember the worst days. What I'd give to have them back now. Remember the times when we went driving, killing time like we never run out of it. Sometimes things don't work out the way they should. Sometimes life gets in the way of all the good. Sometimes things don't work out the way we plan. Sometimes things that seem unbreakable break into, like me and you. We went driving, nowhere on a map with a circle around it. Like all our plans, like that little white house with a porch around it, raising our kids with a good Lord planned it. Like me and you, like me and you. Sometimes things don't work out the way they should. Sometimes things that seem unbreakable breaking too.
And you just heard Jerod Yount singing his most recent song, Unbreakable, here on Hank's Corner. I'm Hank Jr. And I have to say that I'm very happy that you brought up that little public service announcement, for lack of a better term, because certain topics like depression, mental health, physical pain, suicide is something near and dear to me. And I'm glad that you brought it up. I think in today's world, it's getting a little better to talk about it, but it's still very stigmatized, and, I love that you're able to bring that out, and that's what music can do. Music can bring out those raw emotions and, in many cases, almost bring a healing power to some, not all, and like you said, it doesn't always work out, but, to some, and I, applaud you for, just mentioning those things.
Well, thank you. It's just, it's something that's near and dear to my heart and the hearts of many people. Um, and I agree with what you said. I think, as time goes on and we advance as a society and as a culture, it becomes a little more destigmatized and it becomes easier to talk to. But it's still something that's not taken as seriously as maybe it should be, and it's still something that people struggle with every day without knowing how to talk about it or knowing how to uh, communicate their problems. And one thing that I just I will never do as an artist. It doesn't matter if I'm playing to crowds of 50 people or 500,000. You know, I will never fight my own personal struggles or the things going on in my life. I'll never hide those things because at the end of the day, we're all people. Whether you're Garth Brooks or Luke Combs or Hank Jr. and Jerod Yount, we're all people and we're all fighting something and we're all going through something and nobody's perfect and nobody is any better or worse than anyone else. And everybody's fighting battles and nothing will get better if nobody's willing to be open about the fact that they're fighting battles, and I think that's what music does.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. So thank you for, bringing that topic up. So 2021 is coming to an end and we got 2022 right around the corner. Do you have any goals set for next year or any resolutions?
Oh well, been on musically, resolutions musically. I would like to open for a few more people. I would like to get my name out there a little more, um, and can kind of continue the standard that I set in 2021 and the uh, continue on that glide path up that I started. 2020 was such a weird year for everyone, and any progress you had in 2019 kind of came to a screeching halt. So 2021 was a rebuilding year for me personally in my music, and I think for a lot of musicians and a lot of artists that are independent and smaller artists. I think it was kind of a rebuilding year and kind of everybody was trying to get back into the swing of things. So really what I want to do with 2021 is continue with that rebuild and continue with the progress that I've made this past year.
So I'm gonna hold your manager to making you successful. So George Davis is your manager, correct?
Absolutely, yes, he is.
And so I got to meet George Davis for the first time out there in the Freedom Jam outside of St. Louis, and of course he hosts before Nashville, and I definitely enjoy watching his podcast. And he was one of the ones that kind of inspired me to start podcasting. So if you're not successful, I'm going to blame him for that. So don't you worry about that. But you mentioned you want to open up for some artists, and of course that can help build exposure. But in a dream world, who would you love to open up with the most, or even perform on stage with, if you could?
Oh, that's a good question. I would love to have the opportunity to like play with Luke Combs, but I don't want to open for Luke Combs and I don't want to play on stage. Like Luke Combs is one of my biggest inspirations in current music, but we look too much alike. We look too much alike, and I feel like it'd be weird. You'd be like, "Who's up there right now? Who's this Jerod Yount guy? Has Luke Combs got a second? Like, does he have a second thing where he's writing other songs?" So that's not a really. That's just somebody that I love to meet and
Mhm.
get to hang out with. I'm a big Parker McCullum fan. I think it'd be really cool to share the stage with Parker McCullum. But man, it'd be really cool to get to share the stage with somebody like Cody Johnson or Brooks and Dunn. Those are probably my top two. Cody Johnson,
Okay.
Brooks and Dunn, for
All
sure.
right. Well, those are some great names, and I would love to have any of those names listening to my podcast. And so, if they are, one day maybe they'll bring you up on stage as well. But before we get to 2022, we get through the Christmas season. So, are you ready for Christmas? Have you done everything you need to do, or are you one of those last minute hurry up and get things done?
I'm a last minute shopper as far as like I wait till the last week in November and the first week of December. So I got everything done. Minus maybe I might still be lacking like one or two presents. But so far I've done well. I've got everything bought. I've gotten everything wrapped, and I'm doing way better this year than I typically do. So What about you? You got everything good to go? You ready for Christmas?
So fortunately, I only have to buy really for my wife. My wife takes care of everything else. So I pretty much have everything ready for her, and she does watch my podcast. So I can't say how much more I have left to buy, but yeah, we're pretty close. She does a great job in getting everything ready for Christmas. So I don't have to do all the hard work that she does.
That makes it a lot nicer, doesn't it?
It sure does. So, do you have any Christmas traditions that your family takes part in?
Uh, Really, we don't have a whole well, I mean, I'd say our only Christmas tradition is, when I go to my dad's for Christmas, we always watch a Christmas Vacation, where every year we have to watch that movie.
Okay.
That's like his favorite all-time movie, it's one of mine, The National Lampoon.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a great movie. But other than that, really, we don't have any crazy traditions. It's just, we try to make the best of the holidays and spend as much time together and quality time as we can. And try to really enjoy the moment, enjoy getting to get together. It's just a good time to do that.
And that's what's great about the holidays, that it does give people the chance to do that. And sometimes during the year it's just everyday stuff, but the holidays kind of force you to get together, and that's always a great thing. Do you have a favorite Christmas song?
Oh, um, I Silent Night is probably honestly my favorite Christmas song. As
Okay.
weird as that is, kind of like the old school, that or White Christmas by Bing Crosby. It's another classic. You can't hardly beat that one. So yeah,
Okay,
those are
well that's
pretty.
awesome, and I'll touch on those too. So there's nothing weird about that at all. And for instance, White Christmas. Actually, I just interviewed Stephanie Ryan and Elena Weston, and I'm sorry, Ileana Weston, and they both said White Christmas was their favorite. So you're in good company there. And I love Silent Night because it takes me back when I was a kid at my aunt's church in Philadelphia. We used to have a midnight service, and we would light the candles, all the other lights would be turned off, and we would be singing Silent Night at that time. So, nothing weird about it at all. I love those two choices. Do you have a favorite holiday food?
uh, I'm a big pumpkin pie guy.
Oh, yes.
Thanksgiving, pumpkin pie is it's a treat that you don't get very often. I love pumpkin pie. Uh, Other than that, probably I'm just your typical grab some stuffing, grab some turkey or ham, and grab some mashed potatoes. Leave all the green stuff, leave that on the plate. leave that, So
Yeah, and that would be
pretty.
a typical answer from us guys, right?
Oh,
To go for
100%
all
meat
that
and
stuff.
potatoes, and we're good to go.
How about your Christmas tree? Is that a real Christmas tree or artificial?
Artificial. I'm more of an artificial guy. I love the going to cut down a Christmas tree, but man, they're so sticky, and you got to be really careful with taking care of them. The artificial ones you just throw in the basement, and then you bring it up and set it up. Ideally, my ideal tree is the artificial that already have the lights in it. So you just kind of plug the wires together, and then your lights are already hung, and all you got to do is hang some ornaments. That's what about you? You
I
artificial
hear
guy,
that.
so you got a Christmas tree in the back.
So these are artificial. Obviously, they're for the podcast. But I did buy a real tree once. That was it. So our main one, we do have a artificial that we've had for several years, and that's the way it's going to stay. My wife prefers a real one, but as you said, they're just so hard to take care of, and yeah, I'd rather just stick with the artificial. But I guess us guys kind of have the same mentality today.
You got to take a page out of Clark Griswold's book. His no cigars around a real tree. You
Yeah,
got to be
I
real
like my
careful with
house
it.
the way it is, so I don't want to have to
Get a
worry about
squirrel
that.
stuck in there.
Well, you know what? Actually, many years ago, it wasn't Christmas, but it was on New Year's when I was living up in Jersey, and in our basement, we did have a squirrel come running in. right at the countdown time where we're counting down from 10 seconds. And I guess it saw all the people down there, and it just ran right into the fireplace as we're counting down. And then it runs back out with its tail on fire. And, we were all just having a good time because it was New Year's, and, we had a little bit to drink. And so we thought it was
Oh yeah,
hilarious that a squirrel was on fire at midnight. Yeah,
that's a
hopefully,
great holiday story.
hopefully no more shenanigans like that. But Jerod,
Yeah.
hey, I appreciate you coming on Hank's Corner today. I hope you have a Merry Christmas and look forward to what you have in the new year. And we're definitely going to play the video All American Girl to finish up. But you're more than welcome to come on my podcast anytime. And like I said, I hope the new year brings you something good.
Well, thank you so much for having me and taking the time out of your day to interview me. And it was a great time. It was a blast, and I definitely would love to be on here again. And I wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and God bless you all. And to all the viewers, Merry Christmas, and everybody have a great, safe holiday.
The perfect combination of the city and the sticks, with her tight designer jeans and those airy-eyed kicks. She's her daddy's little angel, her mama's pride and joy. Drives Mercedes-Benz and loves her country boys. You take the best part of the city, throw in a lot of country. Boy, you got a hell of a style, because those lights in Times Square can't even compare to that pretty little homegrown smile. And that golden blonde hair, man, I swear gets me going every time. She's gonna rock your world, that all-American girl. She's a rodeo queen, every city boy's dream. She'll show out on the dance floor if you know what I mean. Listens to everything from Haggard to the hip-hop jam. She'll get up in the stand or down in the sand. You take the best part of the city, throw in a lot of country. Boy, you got a hell of a style, because those lights in Times Square can't even compare to that pretty little homegrown smile. And that golden blonde hair, man, I swear gets me going every time. She's gonna rock your world, that all-American girl. You take the best part of the city, throw in a lot of country. Boy, you got a hell of a style,